Saturday is here at Breeze Stevens Field in Madison, Wisconsin, the capital city of Ultimate, and welcome everyone to Game Day Live presented by Pabst Light. We got one day of championship weekend action down, and we got one spicy matchup remaining with the Pabst Light Cup still up for grabs. Thank you so much for joining us here on the UFA's YouTube channel. Ian Toner alongside the voice of the league, Evan Lepler, Ulti-World Editor-in-Chief Charlie Eisenhood, Kelsey Percy, former coach of the Minnesota Windchill and 2018 UFA champ Colin Camp. We are so pumped to be here with you all. We had a thrilling night yesterday. We had Salt Lake coming up short against Boston, the Glory winning that one 21-17, and the Minnesota Windchill staging a late second half comeback as they are wont to do with a 23-21 victory over the Atlanta Hustle. Guys, what are your thoughts as you look back on that first day of action here in Madison?
Well, two great games, two really games that were still in doubt in the fourth quarter, which is what you want. And I gotta say, there's a Minnesota feeling in the air with the breeze and the wind and the chill and the Twin Cities matriculating to the capital city of Ultimate. It can't be a fluke anymore, guys. It just can't be a fluke. They are not frauds. Definitively, 100% fraud watch. Over. Now, I don't know if they can beat Boston. We can discuss that, and we'll see tonight if they can actually beat Boston, because this is the final boss for this season and for this era for Minnesota. But fraud watch is over with what they did last night to the Hustle down the stretch.
I'm with you. I'm with you. I think they kind of got the monkey off the back a little bit with the win over Chicago after getting killed all regular season by them. But, you know, to come out, go down, and come back and win, to me it shows that the defense is really at the highest level in this league. And that maybe is the thing we've overlooked because the wind conditions last championship weekend masked that they were actually a very good team. And of course they are a great bad weather team. So, but you know what they've been able to do this season when they're at full strength, it's not always the cleanest Ultimate, but man, can they get out there and get some breaks.
You know, Charlie, I think one of the things that it also proves is that the UFA is really evolving past the era of talent wins. You need systems, you need strategies, you need a plan, and you need a higher level of commitment than ever before, because other teams are swinging for the fences and other teams are committing. Other teams are building UFA-specific systems. This is not the Roughnecks era. This is not New York has the best players all packed into one O-line. This is a new era.
And for me, crazy things continue to happen under the lights at Breeze Stevens. We have the sun setting right now. Are we in for another crazy night just like last night?
I sure hope so. Great vibes here at Breeze Stevens Field. Plenty of fans showed up for the PUL-WUL All-Star game. The PUL All-Stars with a 16-9 victory over the WUL All-Stars. We're just getting started here on Game Day Live. What?
I just said it was a beatdown.
Odds makers take a beating on that one, huh?
What was the line? Remind me what the line?
Winning this game.
I did.
WL minus 2.5. That was the line.
4.5.
4.5.
I mean, it was
okay.
Western Ultimate League. On paper, they looked like they were going to dominate this game, and it was anything but.
Well, hats off to the PUL. They were just celebrating on this stage just a few moments ago. The vibes are great. The All-Stars are still filing in and out. We still got plenty of fans starting to come in for the UFA Championship game. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll have Boston Glory's Malachi Raymond joining us. He's the 2025 UFA Be the Change Impact Award winner. Plenty more action coming here on Game Day Live, presented by Pabst Light.
Are you kidding? And an incredible catch. Are you kidding me? Oh my God! Throw like a pro with a new Pro Ultimate Frisbee. Created with input from the sport's premier passers, the Pro Frisbee is specially designed to fly through the wind and maintain its edge. Experience the official Frisbee of the UFA and get yours at shopufa.com today.
The game's biggest stars on the game's brightest stage. The world's most competitive annual tournament pits the playmakers and the game changers against one another in a weekend of action. So many legacies on the line in this game.
Arguably the best player.
And that's just ridiculous. She's got it, and it's over.
Welcome back to Breeze Stevens Field. Just a few moments away from the opening poll here at 2025 UFA Championship Weekend with the championship match between the Boston Glory and the Minnesota Wind Chill on the line. But right now we're lucky to be joined by the 2025 UFA Be the Change Impact Award winner, none other than Boston Glory's Malachi Raymond. Malachi, thanks so much for making time. For those who aren't familiar with your story, made the roster for the Glory this year, an incredible accomplishment in and of itself, considering all the talent that exists in the New England region. Unfortunately, you suffered a knee injury, but that didn't stop you from contributing to your community. You ran, I believe, somewhere in the realm of 20 clinics that impacted about 3,000 players. For those who aren't familiar with the work you were doing, why don't you let us know what that looked like this year?
Yeah, thank you, and thank you for having me on here today. I think one of the things that Glory and really the entire New England Ultimate program prides themselves on is always competing, and I think I wasn't able to do that on the field, and so I really took that and applied it off the field on like how to get as many youth as possible involved with Glory and New England Ultimate. And so did a variety of clinics, both partnered with Glory and as well as some with Buddha, the Boston Ultimate Disc Association, looking from some like 1 or 2 hour clinics all the way to like multi-day or weekend long clinics. And so yeah, it's been a good time.
Yeah, so Malachi, when we were talking earlier, one of the things you were sharing with me, and I'd love for you to share with the folks back home, how you're not just leading clinics for the Ultimate community, but how you're really connecting with community outside of Ultimate through other organizations and sponsorships. Tell me about that.
For sure, of course. Yeah, we had a lot of connections with organizations such as like the Make-A-Wish Foundation, as well as like School of Rock. I think one of the things that we really pride ourselves on is we are very intentional with the sponsorships that we get through Glory. We don't want our sponsorships just to be financially speaking, but also have a good impact on the community within themselves. And so a lot of the sponsorships that we looked for are ones that are already involved, not only within the community, but specifically within youth in the community. And then we're able to kind of help them expand and grow their own work along with ourselves.
That's fantastic.
What's your advice for anyone who may be in another team, another community, and doesn't really know where to start about trying to get youth more involved and spread the game of Ultimate in their communities?
Yeah, I think getting youth involved can be anything big or small. I think it can be leading massive clinics, but also just like being friendly enough to kind of invite those who may look like they've never tossed before to throw with you if you're practicing throwing or things of that nature. I think it can be very small steps that lead to larger changes.
All right, I gotta put you on the hot seat and
Okay, let's
ask.
hear it.
Obviously, you have confidence in your boys getting the job done tonight. What's going to be the most important thing for them to win and get over the hump and capture the first championship for the Glory tonight?
Honestly, I think it's just having confidence in themselves. We have everything that we need to do. Now we just got to go out there and actually do it. And so I think that's it.
Well, Malachi, thank you so much for your time. Malachi joins previous winners Terry Gaither, Rafael Castro, Joe Anderson, and Dylan DeClerc of the Minnesota Wind Chill. So that's great company to be a part of. Thank you so much for joining us.
thank
The
you both for having me.
2025 UFA and Be Ultimate, Be the Change Award winner, Malachi Raymond, joining us here on set. Game Day Live is going to roll on with more pregame analysis and breakdowns live from Breese Stevens Field.
Thank you. The game's biggest stars on the game's brightest stage. The world's most competitive annual tournament pits the playmakers and the game changers against one another in a weekend of action. So many legacies on the line in this game.
Arguably the best player.
And that's just ridiculous.
She's got it!
And it's over.
Welcome back to Breese Stevens Field. Ian Toner along with Evan Lepler, Charlie Eisenhood, Kelsey Percy, and Colin Camp. Minnesota and Boston warming up just behind us here on the pitch. Folks, we've got two key players who aren't going to be participating tonight. Dylan DeClerc was injured in the semifinal against Atlanta. There was a collision with his own player at a end of quarter situation going into halftime, and Ben Sadok is unavailable for this game. Two guys that fill different roles on their teams and play on different lines predominantly. I want to get y'all's take on what their loss means to those teams and what these teams are going to have to do in the absence of Sadok from the Boston offense and DeClerc from the Minnesota defense.
Well, DeClerc won't be on the field, but Ben Feldman said he's the heart and soul of the team, and he can still bring that heart and soul and energy on the sideline. For Boston, they are in some ways a little like Atlanta in that you wouldn't say that they're the greatest in doing the little things. And I'm thinking about the pull receive. And Ben Sadok is one of those guys, along with Ned Dick and Ryan Dinger and perhaps Simon Carapella, that'll be handling those pulls. And that's something I'm looking for early in this game, because Cam Lacey was unbelievable yesterday, pulling, forcing the hustle to start deep in their end zone.
As he has been for the last couple seasons.
Yeah, but he had like a perfect game yesterday. I mean, nothing out of bounds, constantly forcing them to start deep. So I think the absence of Sadok, not necessarily from a creativity downfield perspective, but just a little thing of fielding the pull, getting them into their offense. One or two dumb turnovers at early points of possessions could get that wind chill break train rolling.
Yeah, I mean, Dylan DeClerc led the team this season in plus minus, but he had kind of a quiet game yesterday before the injury. And so, like, I feel like it's easier to replace somebody on a D-line in general, especially one as talented as Minnesota's. Losing a center handler type is just simply more difficult to deal with because especially Minnesota's reset defense is so good. They created havoc in the reset space against Atlanta. That's basically how they came back into the game. And so I just feel like it's going to be more difficult for them to kind of replace Sadok's production, specifically in just those abilities to get open and break the mark with that lefty.
So Charlie, did DeClerc have a quiet game Or did he have a quiet game in the way that Paul Krennic had a quiet game against Gumby back against Madison in the playoffs, in which he basically erased? Now, Adam Miller did not get erased, but he wasn't that loud either. So is that maybe a better measurement of DeClercq's performance up to the point that he got injured?
I think it's a fair point, and I think it is a loss. We've been talking a lot about Sadok amongst our group and kind of what that means for them, but not having DeClercq, it is definitely a loss. I'm just sort of looking more at like actual block production, goals and assists. Like he was not really on the board for those kinds of things. But obviously, losing a starting D-line player is painful, even for a team that's got depth like Minnesota.
Well, it's blocks, but it's also his ability on the counterattack. He is end zone seeking, and he is someone who's come up with some really big catches and big moments, like against that Chicago
I think
game.
that's why he's led the team in plus minus.
Yeah, so it's a true hit.
But I do get back to Evan's point there. Is he is an emotional leader for this team, and he is still going to be present tonight. I actually think Ben Sadok is a bit of an emotional leader for this Boston team as well. He wears his emotions on his sleeves. He's a hype guy, and not having him here, that's going to play a factor as well. But also for me, last night, I thought he controlled the offense so well, Ben Sadok. And in a high-pressure game where this crowd is going to be cheering against them, this is a home game for Minnesota based on what happened last night. Asking guys like Dick and Dinger to fill that role while they're capable is a high-pressure ask for them, and that is where early in this game we're going to understand quickly whether or not the Sadok absence is a big factor or not.
I think one other thing worth calling out that was especially prevalent in the PUL-WL All-Star game was it's a little windier tonight than it was yesterday, and it was especially impactful on some of the deep shots in the All-Star game. I'm wondering how you guys think that factors into either team's offensive or defensive game plan. It feels like something that Minnesota has loved to embrace as a part of its defense.
So Ian, and one thing I want to highlight, during our press interview, one of the things that we heard from the Boston players and coach was like lack of concern about wind, lack of concern about the noise of the crowd and the energy that it produces. And so my question is, were they being cagey with the press, as it were? Like that's a real strategy sometimes. Or are they truly not preparing the depth of their roster? Like Babbitt has seen the big moments. DeCrona has seen the big moments, has been in those pressure cookers, but has the rest of the Boston roster seen those big moments? Are they going to be ready when the crowd gets loud?
I do think it's a simple story. The wind favors the wind chill. I mean, a sloppier, higher turnover game is to the benefit of the team that has played in those style games all season, because that's kind of what their offense produces, and their defense is able to kind of make those turnovers happen from the opposing offense. And so Boston's a team that just wants to go out there and be super clinical. They went perfect on break chances last night. They had very few O-line turnovers. I mean, they eviscerated DC 2 weeks ago in an almost perfect game. If they come out and their offense is struggling because they're missing their center handler and it's windy and their, DeCrona inside forehands aren't as sharp as they were last night, that's obviously helpful for the wind chill.
Yeah, there's no doubt Boston will have more completions in this game than Minnesota. So more completions, more throws, that's more opportunities for the Wind to wreak havoc. One thing that I think is going to be really interesting and important tonight for this wind chill team is when Jeff Babbitt is on the field defensively, don't go at him. Salt Lake won a couple of battles against Jeff Babbitt, but lost the war. You will lose the war if you go at Jeff Babbitt. So don't try to battle him. Try to battle everybody else. And they have a lot of good other players too. But we saw that early in Babbitt's career. He came into the league, had 40-something blocks, and then teams in the East just kind of started taking a cutter, and the guy that Babbitt was guarding would get out of the way so Babbitt wouldn't be making plays. If Minnesota challenges Jeff Babbitt, they're going to get burned because he is that guy in this moment. Don't go to try to win the battle because you will lose that war.
I will say, though, you do want to try to activate Jeff Babbitt tonight because we aren't sure what his health is right now. He is a gamer. He's going to show up. But we do, if you are Minnesota, you want to try to find ways to activate him. Certainly not deep. Maybe it's more in the underspace. If you can find a way to exploit that a little bit, I think his health is a question. I mean, from my perspective, being on the sidelines last night, he looked gimpy, and I think if you're Minnesota, you do have to kind of test that a little bit early just to see where he's at. But to your point, it's a great point, right? If he feels like and it looks like he's 100%, I agree. You got to keep him out of there because he will take over this game then.
And he was a little cagey this morning. I mean, he said he's feeling fine, and then he also said later that no matter how I'm feeling, I can get through one game. So that implies that he's not feeling great, and it's hard to imagine he would be feeling great. The question is, how much do they push him in terms of how many points will he play? And will Minnesota go after him and poke the bear a little bit like Reed Browning did yesterday?
Well, what I also think is interesting is that, they needed a heavy dose of Jeff Babbitt and Toby DeCrana yesterday for their offense to look good. There were times their O-line was stalling out, and it was like DeCrana hitting a really tough throw that got them out of it, or Babbitt coming up with a big play. And when you're asking now Babbitt to probably have to do even more tonight because he's going to have to go back in the reset space to take over some of the touches that Sadok was getting, is that going to be a problem down the stretch for a Winchell team that just wants to be there in the end, and they have been getting wins all season just like that?
Well, and notice the amount of time we're spending talking about just one or two players on Boston, and Minnesota kind of the faceless army. We're like, it's who steps up. Now, are there other players that could step up for Boston that we're not talking about? I mean, we are all fans of Tanner Johnson-Go here at this table. I think Brendan McCann also did a really good job of mastering the counterattack, but it's got to get in their hands, right?
Minnesota's going to give them the ball. So we don't have to worry about that.
I can't argue
There's
that. I know that's
be
going to happen.
D-line opportunities for the Boston Glory.
So that's a question that I want to dig into a little bit. I want to know what you guys think makes the Winchell defense so successful and so effective. And B, are we talking enough about Boston's defense, a team that completely neutralized the DC Breeze attack in the East Championship, that did what it needed to do against Salt Lake and then was perfect after the turn against Salt Lake in the semi? So whichever one you guys want to start with, I want to go down that road.
I would just say, yeah, right now we're not talking enough about this Boston defense, because if you look at it on paper, this Minnesota offense has been struggling. We have been very skeptical of the Winchell and their ability to win yesterday and today because of those offensive struggles. And Boston has put on a defensive clinic for 2 straight games here in the playoffs at the key time. And for me, that is another big factor in all this. And that gets into the conversation about how does Will Brandt play tonight? Does Josh Klain have a bounce-back game? Does Matt Rader have a bounce-back game? That is a big factor in all this. So I do think the Boston defense is probably where we need to start first of where we're not putting enough respect right now.
Yeah, the comment yesterday that everyone has had their best game against the Atlanta Hustle. Well, I mean, the Atlanta Hustle D-line is certainly explosive, but they had their ups and downs this year. They also faced a lot of great offenses. I think that's the biggest question tonight. We know that Minnesota's defense is going to make things hard for Boston. They're going to get some opportunities. But it's up to Will Brandt and Gordon Larson and Josh Klain and Thomas Shope and, a guy like Matt Rader, who's been in so many big games throughout his career.
And honestly, Quinn Snyder, I was he had a few clutch catches and deflections, but he also had some turnovers. And I know he's got talent. That wasn't the big performance that I was expecting to see from him, adding another dimension to their offense coming back into the fold after his stint with Team Canada.
A year ago at this time, we talked about Quinn Snyder needing to step up.
Yep.
And late in that game against the Flyers in the finals, he had a massive skying score that either gave him a 1-point lead or a 2-point lead late in the game. But yeah, I mean, he is that downfield dude for the Minnesota Winchell. He's going to have tough matchups to do it against, but can he rise up in the moment?
I think he's definitely capable. I think it is. We've seen the glimpses from the Winchell.
Yeah.
I get a weird feeling like they're going to have a really good offensive night, like maybe their best.
You do. You do.
Oh,
you do.
I don't know. I like their ability to shoot deep from the handler position and challenge this Boston defense in the deep space. If you want to just grind the unders against
and that's
Boston,
what Salt Lake
you're going to have a bad time.
And that's what
Salt Lake was successful looking deep. And, DC 2 weeks ago, is not a team that really wants to huck. I think they were the lowest hucking team in the entire league.
Yep.
Yeah,
And
you're
they
correct.
just got suffocated on the unders by Boston's really strong cutter defenders. But Boston's defense doesn't have necessarily that much size, and they have a couple guys out there that can be that, and if they cross Babbitt over, they have that for sure. But I think Quinn Snyder can win to the deep space, and as long as the wind conditions stay like they are, kind of this crosswind right now, I think that's definitely a shapeable wind for guys like Klain and Brandt to throw those deep shots and, you know, get off the field in a hurry.
And they're used to throwing in this wind in the stadium. I can't emphasize enough how the wind in this stadium is different. Like, it's not a crazy wind right now, but where you throw it in the stadium, the height you throw it at, it can start doing weird things to the disc. We saw it in the All-Star game. If you catch an edge the wrong way, it's going to dive into the ground. If you catch an edge the wrong way, it's going to fly 30 yards out of bounds, right? So having that experience here in this stadium for guys like Josh Klain and Will Brandt and Gordon Larson is going to go a long ways, in my opinion.
What do you guys think is going to be, what are you looking at as your barometer for, hey, Minnesota's offense is okay. Hey, Minnesota's offense needs to clean things up. Is it as simple as, are they getting holds, or what goes through your mind?
I mean, in my mind, every time their O-line takes the field, get ready for an adventure. Like, buckle up.
Oh, my goodness.
Because, you know, they'll have 4 or 5 clean holds in this game, but the question is, will they be able to get dirty holds? Like, Salt Lake did not have a single dirty hold yesterday. When they turned it, Boston was scoring. Minnesota's going to need to pick it up, and I think Minnesota's O-line is capable of playing D. More often than not, there are some guys that you can pick on for sure on that O-line, and I'm sure Boston will look to do that.
Well, and Boston's D-line, maybe one of its greatest strengths is its offensive ability. Most teams are not putting players the caliber of Tanner Johnson go to lead the way for a defensive line.
And
it's
Peter
that's a
Ford,
crossover
Tyler
guy.
Chan.
Yes, I mean,
and
you
Turner
look down
Allen.
the board. Yes, and so that is going to be that maybe is the thing that kind of feels like it tips the scales in my mind of which way this game is going to go, because I just believe that Boston will get the disc, and when they do, I'm not sure the wind chill are going to be able to get it back enough. I'm not expecting perfection again like yesterday, but you know, if they go 75% on their D-line conversion rate, I don't know that there's enough for the wind chill to kind of overcome that.
And what was Coach Rosenthal's magic number for breaks in the game? 6?
That's what he said.
Right.
He said 6 breaks wins 75% of games in this
So,
league.
I mean, I think that number is really spot on for tonight. If Minnesota finds a way to keep it under 6 times that they're broken, I think they really have a chance in this game. You get over that 6 break mark with how efficient that D-line has been and Minnesota's struggling offense, I don't think Minnesota comes back from that.
You know, really quickly, Kelsey, we saw yesterday the Atlanta D-line got the disc 13 times, I believe, and they only ended up getting, I think, 6 breaks. So about a little under half, like 45%. Simply put, Boston's going to do better than that. So if the wind chill turned it over like they did yesterday against what is, I think, a better defense from Boston, I just don't know if there's a path, because the D-line offense is too good for the Glory. Go ahead.
I'll add in one wrinkle that still goes to your point, which is something we haven't talked about at all, is end of quarter situations. And Salt Lake was abysmal in end of quarter situations. They really just coughed them up, and that's something that I know they work on, but maybe it was the youth and that part was playing. There was a lack of clock awareness that Minnesota, I know personally, drills for, and I believe I've seen from Boston as well. And so part of that is like, who can notch those end of quarter advantages, because that could swing this game a couple points.
Yeah, and I just want to drill into that a little bit. Colin, I don't know if you can shed some light from your playing days with the Radicals. I think a lot of folks who are, you know, just spectating, taking in the game, oh, the end of quarter is just about who can jump up at the right time and grab it. But there's so much more strategy that goes into it. You know, you're trying to figure out what kind of mark can you set on the thrower. Which thrower are you letting get the throw off? Like, What do you recall from practicing and preparing for those situations with the Radicals?
Yeah, I mean, also downfield as well. You're trying to get your matchups, right? I mean, if you're playing out there defensively, you want to have 3-on-2. If you're offense, you want to have 3-on-2, right? You want to try to find spots where you have an advantage down the field. And a guy not throwing it 60 yards, right? Ideally, it's 40 yards with some float on it, or even 20 yards with a zip pass in there, right? You can get something that's quick into the end zone to get that end of quarter, and it's critical too, because those end up being, you know, they can be essentially breaks, right, depending on who starts with the disc the next quarter.
I was kind of blown away by how teams struggled in end of quarters yesterday, not getting the disc to midfield. I mean, multiple times we saw teams either not get a throw off or kind of just be right in front of their own end zone and have to go 70, 80 yards against a strong mark. The end of quarter play was better defensively yesterday than it was offensively, which is a little surprising.
Especially from Tanner Johnson-Go at the end of the third quarter for Boston.
Yeah, well, that was the biggest play of the day. That biggest turning point, arguably, in either game. Maybe that we could argue the snake in the grass too. But yeah, I mean, the end of third quarters historically is where we have seen wild stuff. Colin, you set up your teammate Kevin Pettit-Scantling by deflecting it beautifully to him. What was that, 7 years ago? Down at that end zone way over there.
I'm glad you mentioned the happy memory, and not the sad one.
Paging.
Well, wasn't it Kevin Brown that said, Colin, it's okay? Everybody wanted KPS to catch it, not you?
Well, no, 100%. I'm just saying I'm glad you didn't bring up the Seattle game, where equally tough end of the third quarter situation as well at championship weekend, right? So, I mean, these plays happen, right? And they're critical. And last night, it swung the game. Like, to me, the game felt like it was over the second Tanner Johnson was walking off the field with his hands in the air.
I'll bring it back though real quick, because there's a difference too to, like, are you clock managing or are you pushing tempo? And is there that awareness? Did you come in with a plan? And one of the things I want to circle back to is we talked about the crowd. When you have short windows of time before you have to get your next line out there, do you know what your plan is? Are you able to communicate that, or is it so loud that you can't hear yourself think? That could be a factor.
I want to know, since we've been talking about Tanner Johnson-Go and that end of quarter, who's on y'all's short list for championship weekend MVP? I mean, we saw some really strong performances yesterday, plenty of counting stats. I would think Tanner Johnson-Go would be in the conversation, but who else are you guys thinking about?
I mean, Tanner's definitely in the conversation. Obviously, Jeff and Toba with a big game tonight if their team wins.
PK.
I mean, I think those are the three guys probably for Boston. Someone else would have to have a really insane game. I mean, but even if Orion Cable catches 11 goals tonight, probably 7 of them are thrown by Toba, and then he's got 16 assists on the weekend. So, you know, Toba's in really good shape. Jeff, obviously, his ability to change the game with his athleticism. But yeah, for Minnesota, there are a lot of guys. I mean, you think D-line guys like PK and Noah Hansen, you know, and obviously in the offense, Will Brandt. Gordon Larson continues to be a really solid player for this team. And I mean, but you called the Winchilla Faceless Army before. Like, they do have standout players. Obviously, you're not in your second straight championship game without that. And Charlie, I thought you made a great point in the press conference earlier. They're a Joel Clutton tip buzzer beater away from being in the championship game for the third freaking year in a row. Yeah. Like, it's really incredible what they have built, how much belief they have collectively, and just what this organization stands for. It's unbelievable. Now, can they beat Boston? That's the question.
It feels crazy that they were on fraud alert until today or yesterday. That seems crazy. When you say that seems crazy.
Look at their regular season. You know, that's the thing. Like, they got their doors blown off by Chicago
twice,
multiple times. And
you
know, they had that win against Atlanta, which felt like the one thing that they could kind of hang their hat on from the regular season. But everybody was expecting them to lose to Chicago. So the fact that they get through Chicago and then they come out and they come back against a really good Atlanta team and like this amazing run, 6-1 run at the beginning of the fourth quarter.
Do you still have the Hustle on Fraud Watch, by the way?
Oh no!
Listen.
Oh no!
Oh
Atlanta,
boy!
Oh no!
Oh boy!
It's a tough pill to swallow for them. It really is. They were in a position to win that game. They had basically did what they needed to do.
They were up 2 to start in the fourth quarter.
They were up 4 with 6 minutes to go in the third. and to then kind of cough up those breaks. So it was 3 straight points where Minnesota ran sideline trap. They got 2 breaks out of it, and then they went snake in the grass as the changeup pitch, which worked perfectly, and they got another break. And then that sort of set them up for that run in the fourth quarter, where you could see the Atlanta O-line tensing up and not being comfortable and trying to finish that game. And it was like too little too late once their D-line got back on the field.
Does it come back to preparation? Remember, we heard from PK, we heard from Will, their preparation for championship weekend started February of 2024 was when they started to believe that they deserved here, whether or not anyone else agreed. Does Boston have that same goal? Did the Hustle have that same goal? Or was their goal just to get out of their division?
I think Boston had that goal. Whether or not they'll say that, they didn't say that in the press conference, but you can't have Jeff Babbitt on your team and not have your goal be to win a championship. Like that doesn't exist. I don't think that world exists. If you have Jeff Babbitt on your team, you expect at minimum to have a chance to win a championship.
You expect, but do you believe?
Yes. He's won 2. It's the Bo Kitchard effect.
He has. Have you?
It's the Bo Kitchard's effect.
2-time reigning MVP, 3-time league champ.
We were talking about it on the way back to the hotel last night. That is the name, that is the comp right now for Jeff Babbitt with what he has done in UFA championship games, galvanizing his team. What we've seen it in World Championship finals too. This guy is the Kittredge of his era, and there's a lot of eerie similarities in the way they carry themselves, the way they act, the way they seem injured and then look like the best player on the field 5 minutes later. That was a staple with Bo in his pajama pants 10 minutes before the game on the sideline. Jeff doesn't go with the pajama pants, but he's got his own sullen style sometimes, seems pretty chill, and then just turns into a monster. And look, Bo Kittredge won 5 championships in 6 years with 4 different teams. This would be Jeff's 4th championship with 2 different teams in a very different era of the league where these wins have been harder to come by. And in the biggest moments, Babbitt has always delivered.
I mean, what I'm hearing from that is if he wins again this year, 1, stamp on history. 2, another team should recruit him so he can go for that 3rd team and 5th win.
Yeah, good luck with that. He's born and bred, right? I mean, I don't think he's leaving Boston at this point.
Well, and I loved that of all the things that he got excited to talk to us about, it was his investment and feeling of purpose and focus with the youth. Like, that spoke to me so much.
I mean, you wonder where Boston would be right now if Jeff didn't have the falling out with the New York Empire that he did. And would the Empire run have continued? And obviously the Empire lost other players besides Jeff that contributed to there being a 3rd place team instead of a 1st place team. But yeah, Jeff is a galvanizing presence. And, you know, just Boston get Toba DeCrana if Jeff Babbitt's not there. And do they get the buy-in from Tanner Johnson-Go? And, I mean, all these what-if questions. That, you know, preseason 2024 transaction when he decided he's done with New York and ended up in Boston. That is the moment that changed the perspective of this Glory franchise, and today they have a chance to get to the mountaintop.
He has incredible gravitational force. I mean, none of us are disputing that.
I am very interested, just to change the subject, because I want to get this point in about Minnesota. Evan, you already mentioned the polls and how good they were last night. I felt like Minnesota won all of the small detail strategy things last night against Atlanta, and it was kind of a big reason why they were able to come back and win that game. Sideline trap stuff, both offensively and defensively, they did better with that. Timeouts and scoring out of timeouts, they did better with that. You know, pull coverage on offense, they did better with that. End of quarter situations, they did better with that. So, like, overall, all these little small things seem to add up to a margin in the end. And I feel like that they have an opportunity to have that same advantage against Boston tonight. And they're going to have the 8th man in the stands because it was a very partisan Minnesota crowd last night, and it will be again tonight.
And it's no disrespect to Boston's coaching staff. You don't get to championship weekend without the buy-in from your team all year. But I do think Minnesota has a coaching advantage in this game. Their staff has been here before. Their staff has been ingrained in this league. Their staff knows this team so well. And the pulse of this team at all times. I think there is a coaching advantage for Minnesota tonight, and that's what actually keeps this game closer, because Ben Feldman and the rest of the staff are able to make those in-game adjustments, just like we saw last night against the Hustle.
Are we ready to transition to picks, or do you guys still need to debate this? Evan, let's start with you.
Are you ready, Evan?
Woo. Well, we're walking out of Bree Stevens Field last night after the show, and I'm thinking, like, can I go with Minnesota? Like, could I finally take that plunge of becoming a wind chill believer, jumping on the bandwagon? And there were some wind chill fans outside the gates, and they're like, what do you think about Minnesota? I'm like, it's unbelievable. I'm thinking about picking them tomorrow. And they're like, no, don't do it. Don't pick us. So it's a conundrum. In the end, I think Boston has too much star power. Jeff Babbitt, Toba DeCrana, Tanner Johnson-Go, Tyler Chan, and other stars who will be regarded differently 5-10 years from now than they are now. I think this Boston team, I didn't pick them coming into the weekend. I picked Atlanta. I thought about coming up here on the stage and picking Chicago to win tonight, but I don't think that's the right choice. I'm going with the Boston Glory, 19-15, 4-goal Glory win. I think it's going to be a close game, kind of like the Salt Lake game last night. Boston gets a few late breaks, makes it a 4-goal game when it could be just as easily a 2-goal game. I think Boston wins their first championship, and I think Toba DeCrana is going to be the MVP. I think Toba's going to have another big night.
Charlie?
I have been an outspoken Minnesota wind chill skeptic, but I must say they made me a bit of a believer last night with the defensive run that they made.
And then you saw their face, and you said you're a believer?
So I've been going back and forth all day about what I want to do. I think if Ben Sadok was playing, it would be a pretty comfortable pick, Boston, for me. But because he's not here and what we've seen this wind chill offense be able to do, I'm not convinced that Boston's offense is going to have that same efficiency that we've seen from them the last couple of weeks in these playoffs. So I go back and forth, but ultimately, in the end, I just think that Boston's going to have the two best players in the game. And I come down to the same kind of feeling that Evan has. I got to take the Glory, but it's going to be close. I think it's going to be a 1 or 2 goal game. And I think that Minnesota very much a live underdog in this one.
Do you feel a little off balance straddling on that hedge right there?
Listen, I think it's a really close decision. I do.
Kelsey?
Whew, boys. So here's what I keep hearing. Boston has the players, but I think Minnesota has the team. And I think they are going to use every element of their depth. I think they're going to run Boston silly. I do think it's going to be close because I don't think it's going to be pretty. And I'm with you on the close game. I think it's going to come down. I'm going to call Minnesota, and I'm going to call Minnesota up just by 1. I think it's going to be a nail-biter down to the end because I think Boston's going to punch and punch hard.
Double OT? You're going
to... Ooh. Now I want that. Who does it favor? God, we haven't even dug in. We haven't had a lot of those this year. Not as many, I feel. But I'll go Minnesota, and I'll go Minnesota up 2019.
Colin?
Yeah, for me, I mean, I think Evan said it well, and so did Charlie. For Boston, they have the two best players on the field. I don't think there's any doubt about that. But the question for me is Toba DeCrana. He has been in big games, at big tournaments, but he has never been in front of a crowd like this. I don't believe he's ever been in a crowd, or in a hostile environment, like this. So how he plays in the first quarter is going to tell me a lot about how this game is going to go, because he needs to play a big game with Ben Sadok out tonight, and he needs to be a catalyst for that offense. That being said, for me, I've been on teams where it's a faceless army, and we've been able to win championships in conditions like this with the crowd on our side. So for me, my belief is that the wind chill can get it done, go back-to-back, kind of hurts my heart a little bit because I don't want them to have more championships than the Radicals. but
And to do it on your former home turf.
And do it on our former home turf. Like that hurts my heart a little
They're going
bit.
to spike it on your logo.
But I've 100% convinced myself at this point that Minnesota is going to find one more way to pull off another crazy victory.
Break the tie, Toner.
Yeah, I wish I could have spoken before Charlie because he kind of articulated my sentiment precisely. With Ben Sadok out, I am as unconfident. My level of confidence is perhaps as low as it's been in picking a winner here at championship weekend in the last couple of years. That being said, I do believe that Boston has the talent and the experience. I understand they haven't been in a UFA championship game, but a lot of these guys have been on national teams and been in other club tournament big games, and I think that means something. Could I be wrong again? Absolutely. I've been wrong about the wind chill for the last 3 years. And
Tradition.
We could see Justin Burnett and Noah Hansen make game-changing plays to win this game for
No doubt.
Minnesota. Like they can get blocks.
No question about it. I'm going with Boston by 2, and I don't feel confident in that.
And there's also a chance that Minnesota's O-line looks as they've looked much of the season, and Boston is clinical on break chances and wins by 8.
It is.
I hope we get a
100%.
close game. I desperately want a thriller down to the wire, but I also have a fear that Boston is going to outclass Minnesota. Now, this is music to the Windchill fans' ears, obviously, to hear this skepticism from me. So more power to them. But, yeah, we're just a few minutes away from getting the answers. Can't wait.
I mean, they gave one of the best offenses in the league a lot of trouble yesterday.
Twice.
I think they can do it again.
I mean, the truth of it is the margin of error for Boston is much greater than Minnesota, in my opinion, right? Like, that is a very, very basic way of saying that. And I think that holds true. So the question is, does Minnesota have one more game in them, right? That is the question. Do they have one more game in them?
Alrighty, well, thank you so much for joining us here on Game Day Live, presented by Pabst Light. Don't forget to switch over to the main broadcast for the UFA Championship game between the Boston Glory and the Minnesota Wind Chill. Will Boston capture the first title in franchise history, or will Minnesota go back-to-back? We can't wait. Opening pull just a few moments away here from Breese Stevens Field in Madison, Wisconsin.